If that's what you're feeling and your gut feeling says to do, you just do it. Sometimes I do stuff that makes sense to no one and I'll just do it and then it works out. So I say, just do it. Go down the path. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, you know what not to do. That was not meant for you, but you will never know till you take the risk.
Dr. Joanne Balkaran is a highly respected foot and ankle surgeon known for her expertise in diagnosing and treating complex cases. Beyond her medical career, Dr. Balkaran is a devoted mother and wife, balancing her passion for medicine with her dedication to family. Whether she's in the operating room, mentoring others, or spending time with loved ones, she leads with compassion, integrity, and a deep sense of purpose.
Hello. Hi, Dr. Balkaran. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
I am so excited to have you here. Last year, when we were talking about this season, I'm like, I know who is going to be there. And I thought about you just because of your story, your resilience, just everything that you have accomplished in life. So I know that you have been an inspiration for me, and I know you will be an inspiration to our audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope my journey would help someone to stay steadfast on their goals.
Start sharing your journey. Where did it all started to this very moment?
If I have to go back, my journey started probably when I was 19 years old. I was born in Canada, my brothers and I, but we lived in Trinidad with my family. And I feel that I go through these multiple levels of hardship, and every time that happens, I come out better. But it's how I view my hardship. And I read a quote somewhere: hardship and pain is part of life. Suffering is a choice. So I learned without even reading that quote that I've only read probably last year, that's what it is. I choose not to suffer through it, but how do I rise above it? So at the age of 19, I left my family and I went to Canada. My dad had just passed away unexpectedly, but it was his dream that I go back to Canada, and I paved the way for my brothers and I joined the military. So I grew up very sheltered, and obviously that was very difficult for me. And I got this inner strength to do that. And I was like, I have to do this. And I put my goals on hold because he was sick. So after high school, I started working. I worked at the bank for about 2 years before joining college. So when I started college, I was older than most of the kids that were in college. And it was difficult. So my journey started there. Our family is now reduced by one. My mom is the sole breadwinner, and I know I couldn't add to that burden. And so I had to work and help, and then I had to leave and pursue my goals because I knew that's what he wanted. And I did not want his legacy to just go undone, his prophecy of what he wanted for his family, because he was very educated and he wanted the same. We were very big in academics. So part of that hardship was that it was difficult to leave my family, leave a country that I grew up in, leave the grief of the death of my father, and then to pursue my dreams and fulfill his wishes. And I did that. So 1 month after he passed, I was in boot camp, and I had gotten into the Canadian military. And it was very strange because when I went to get signed up and get everything done, while the day after I told him I've accomplished everything and I'm coming back, that night he passed away. And my mom was like, I think he was just so happy he had all his dreams fulfilled and it was his time to go. And who knows? We just don't know what that afterlife is like, but that's how my journey happened. So I joined the military as a private. I had no experience. I didn't know where I could have joined as an officer because I was in college, but I just didn't know. I didn't have any guidance, so I did the best I can. And I underwent boot camp, and that was the most instrumental journey of my life. It was so difficult for me during that period where I had no friends, no family, and I'm in this institution that's, making me do push-ups and build a trench and running in a rucksack, shooting, using a weapon, and doing everything I had no experience doing, especially living a sheltered life as a girl. I was pushed to my limits, and I was very close to quitting many times. It was physically and mentally straining on me. And with my mom living in another country, it's not like I can pick up the phone and call her and vent with her. I had to just go through that fortitude myself. And so that gave me mental fortitude to build on my resilience and to complete boot camp and complete this journey because I just wasn't going to fail. I was probably a private for about 1 year to 2 years, and then I commissioned as an officer, and guess what? I had to do a second boot camp. So the first one didn't count because now I'm commissioned as an officer. So I did it. I went through the torture again. And this time, same amount of mental fortitude, but I was ready because now the first one prepared me for the second one. And then I learned leadership skills. And I became commissioned, and I knew I was fulfilling my dad's dream. But just guess what? I commissioned and I became the recruiting officer. So then I had the foundation. I had all the information I needed to recruit my brothers. Because then I know, like, don't go through that hardship I just went through. You can go directly into the commission program. The military can pay for your education. I wasn't getting mine paid for, but it could pay for theirs. So I made their path easier, even though, so that journey set me up to continue fulfilling my dad's prophecy. And I did. And they came in as engineers and they started university the same, a year after I did. And they're in the military right now. And they're both high ranking. They're lieutenant colonels in the military. So they've way superseded my rank when I left. But, there is one negative, I would say, even though the military gave me discipline and resilience, I would say it left me with this, I have to be strong all the time. And I have to conceal my emotions. I have to be like a man. And I carried that through decades of my life. And so when you feel weak and you don't want to show it or you hide it, and then over time, I learned to be more in touch with my feminine and be more vulnerable in that situation and know that weakness it's actually a strength, but it's not a sign of weakness because it's being human. So that's kind of where I started until I relocated to Florida for medical school.
So just going back, I mean, oh my gosh, I can't imagine you losing your dad and now you're by yourself. You don't have family around you. I mean, that for me, like, I kind of got a little bit emotional about that because, like, how hard could that been?
It was hard. It was crying at the airport as I left. And I did stay with my mom's sister. I did stay with some family initially, but then once you're in boot camp, you're locked in. You're locked into that institution. Yeah, I had to use the strength of my dad. Like, I had to talk to him. You have to find a why. Over time, your why changed. Why are you doing what you're doing and what's motivating you and giving you that inner strength to achieve this to the very end and don't quit. And I'm like, my dad is not going to die in vain. Like, I am going to do this. This is what he wanted. There's a reason why he would repeatedly tell us this our whole life. It's ingrained in us. Like, this is what Joanne is going to do. Like, since I was young, and he built that for me. And so, for a long time, I didn't have a car. I had to take the bus, the public transportation. It'd take me hours to get back and forth to the base. And in there, I'm in my uniform, so you have to carry yourself with dignity. I can't fall asleep on the subway. There's a certain level of standard that you have to uphold yourself to when you're wearing that uniform. You're representing the country. And so you stand up, give everyone their seat, even though you're tired. It's just certain things like that. So you're carrying a heavy bag and you just have to be able to have that physical strength and that mental strength to just have that self-talk. So it was a lot of self-talk. Like, literally, I'm on the subway and I'm saying, Dad, I'm doing this for you. I'm going to help me get through this. So I'm not sure how, if someone is completely atheist, how they get through, because you have to know that there is something far beyond us, whether it's an energy source, whether it's God, but something, whether it's someone who passed away that really loved you, that you're riding on their faith, that they are watching over you. But it is something that helped me going there, or your inner intuition as a female. Whatever it was, like, that was what carries me. It's carried me my whole life and guide me. Like, if I'm doing something wrong, I feel such a strong conviction, don't go in that direction. And when I do go, it doesn't work out. So I follow that like this. So when I felt like quitting, I just had this inner voice, like, don't, like, there's no other path for you. You have no choice. This is where you have to go. And so that's what drove me, his wishes for me, and my goal to get the same paved way for my brothers so that they had an easier pathway than I did. And I feel that's my whole life. I always go through this hard way of getting things done. If I want to call it hard, but I go through all the steps, and then someone will be like, hey, can I have advice on this? And I'll just give them, hey, this is ABC. But I didn't get to ABC. I jumped through so many hoops. I've lost money. I've made the wrong choices in people, in everything, in what things I invest with. I lost before I got to the point where I'd be like, this works. And then someone, hey, how did you make that happen? I was like, just do this. But for me to answer that, they have no idea how I got to that point, like how much I lost, how much time I spent on it, how much nights I didn't sleep getting there until I got to that solution. And I think that's where I am. As I go through this and I journey through something tough, I can make it easier for someone else. So what I did for my brothers, I try to do for everybody else.
Wow. I think at the end of this, my level of being inspired by you will increase 1,000% now.
Well, this is stuff I really don't talk about. It's stuff that you just live. And one of my staff, she always said, Doc, people see the glory, but they don't know the story. And she's right, because she's journeyed through me with a lot of my stories, but they just see, oh my gosh, she's doing great. But you don't know how much I lost to get here, how much what it's taken to get to certain points, and how hard it is to rebuild and start over multiple times, whether in different countries or different situations or in my academic career, that I have no problems starting over.
Yes. I call it seeing the fruit, but not seeing the plotting of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so after that, you moved to Florida?
Yes. So at that time, my fiance at that time, he lived in Florida. So we had a long distance relationship. We actually went to high school together in Trinidad. And I was, about to go into medical school in Canada. And again, you realize I'm by myself. My brothers were there, but now their journey into their military. And I decided to come to Florida, and I applied to medical school, different medical schools, and I decided to go into podiatry school specifically. And part of that is because I initially wanted to go into oncology, because I was very close to my grandmother. She passed away with metastatic breast cancer, and I was headed down the track to oncology. And I pursued a thesis in melanoma cancer and gene therapy, a PhD thesis I did in my undergrad. But as I volunteered at the Children's Cancer Hospital at McMaster University in Canada, it was very depressing, and I knew this did not mesh with my personality, because this was my goal. Like, I remember telling myself from the age of 10, I'm going to be an oncologist, and then you get shattered with like, what am I going to do? And I am the first doctor in my family, and so there was no one I could turn to ask for advice. And even if I did have mentors in Trinidad, but at that time you had to use a phone card to call. It was international calling was not easy. So I just did what I can with the much resources I can to plug into what I should do. And I knew I had to change my path at that time. And then one of my visits, visiting my fiance at that time, I visited a school in Miami, and I came back and shadowed a doctor in Canada. And I was like, this is it. People come in limping in pain, and he's able to take that pain away right away. As opposed to being an oncologist, I felt better connected this way. Otherwise, I saw myself crying with patients, delivering poor prognosis, and cheering people on when they go into remission. And that's how my career diverted. So at that point, I relocated to Florida, connected with my fiance, who became my husband, and started medical school. And we were married throughout the time while I was in school and residency. He was also in the Navy in Jacksonville. So we went from a long distance relationship, another challenge, 2 different countries, to a long distance marriage. So I'm in Miami and he's in Jacksonville. And so in the middle of studying and everything else, we're trying to drive 6 hours to meet each other. And his family lived in Orlando, so once in a while we'll drive 3 hours to meet each other in Orlando every weekend as much as I can. So that was difficult because I had to balance my time to be able to get all my work done so I can spend time with my husband, and then also to be able to get everything done at school, getting all my studies, preparing for exams. It taught me time management and to be able to juggle that back and forth. And during that time, what I did, instead of dwelling again on that hardship. Oh my gosh, I wish he lived here. I wish this, I wish that. I redirected. And that's what I do with a lot of times when I face, how do I redirect this? Where do I put this energy? I'm not going to sit here and get depressed and dwell like, I wish he was here tonight. I wish he can hold me. I focus on my academics and I use the time to be the best student I could be. And then I became a TA and I start teaching other students how I did stuff and how I did well on a test and how they can do that better. And I graduated from residency in Miami, and so I did my schooling and my residency in Miami. And I had, out of my first job, I moved to outside of Orlando in Lake County in Tavares. And during that time, I was pregnant, and unfortunately, after my daughter was a year old, started living. We lived together when we moved here, and then we grew apart. And after 8 years of marriage and 12 years of dating together, we were divorced. So that was another challenge, because think about it, here I am alone again. So it was a great challenge. Now I'm away from my family who all lived in Canada. I've now lost the reason why I moved to Florida. And when I seriously contemplated moving back to Canada, but I wanted my daughter to have a relationship with her dad and his family. And I just felt, being again the first person divorced, I loved having that bond with my brothers, that bond with my family. It was part of my value. Families and love and is a big part of who I am and my values, and I couldn't put my daughter through that, taking her away and not having that relationship. So I decided to stay and build my career that way. So some of the challenges I had in that hardship was financial. I mean, now I have to pay the bills myself. I wasn't really getting help from him. So basically I had to take care of my daughter and myself and figure out how to do this. I had to manage my time. How do I getting her from school? She gets sick, doctor's appointments, everything else. Manage my time after being with someone for so long. So you've gotten so accustomed for being married and being with that person, and how do you now handle all the daily resources by yourself, daily things that you mowing the lawn, different things that I just didn't do before. And I had to learn to create a balance between building a career and being engaged as a mother with my daughter and get over that mommy guilt. So how I overcame this is that the military did play a big role in that, because resilience. I go back to every time I go through something, I go back, what was the hardest thing I ever experienced? And it was boot camp, that first boot camp. That was the hardest thing I ever experienced physically and mentally. I'm like, I got through that, I could get through this. And I will tell you, one of the lowest moments being divorced, I was working with a group, and I loved the group I worked with, but I had multiple discussions back and forth about being able to grow within that group and become a partner and move up in the chain of my career. And I was very stagnant. So even though I really enjoy the group I was with, it was time for me to move on. And opportunities were coming my way, but I was turning it away because I was very loyal to that group, until I realized what would happen to me if I got sick, if something happens. How am I able to pay my mortgage? How am I able to take care of my child? What am I able to do? If I'm just working for the salary that I can't sustain, if I stop working, I don't have anything to hold that to me. If I work, I get paid. If I don't work, I don't get paid, and I have nothing else to hold me there. And then I realized I have to make that move, that I have to find another way of doing this. And so my family were business owners, and so I knew what it takes to do that. And I know I have the mental fortitude that I gained from everything I've experienced so far. So what I did is that I kept focused mentally on what I want to achieve. And I didn't let that escape from me. And one of my lowest moments in my life financially and emotionally, because there's an emotional deficit that you feel after you've gone through a divorce. Like you blame yourself. What did I do wrong? So that takes years to heal through that and move past that emotion. So in that lowest moment is when I redirected again, and I became an entrepreneur and I opened my own practice. I did not give up on myself. I literally had the least amount of money I had. I had my family backing me up in case I needed it. And I just had belief that this is going to work. And I just had this excellent marketing plan. I'm like, I'm great at medicine. I'm great at what I do, but I'm not that great at marketing. So I'm going to work on that. And I'm going to market myself as much as I can so people know that I'm available. I'm available for anything that needs to get done. And that's what I did. I worked my butt off. I took multiple ER calls, and I told the doctors I'll see the patients whenever. And I did that. I did not give up. Not because of anything else, but because I didn't have a choice, and my why has changed. So at that point in my life, my why is now my daughter. And she has been my why since then. So I need to build a legacy for her, and I need to be there for her, and I need to provide a life for her because I am the one that's raising her. And I had to take care of her and myself. And so I was backed in a corner in another hardship moment, financially and emotionally. And that's when you find your answers and your direction.
You are put in different situations.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like training for what is going to become your purpose.
Right.
Because like if you wouldn't have gone back and become that resilient of where you were at boot camp, when you got divorced, now you have your daughter. Not trying to come up with assumptions what would have happened, but this is what happened, you know? So it was able to help you. So it's kind of like, this is why I enjoy listening to stories and spending the time to listen and go back and analyze. You said you went back and that was the hardest time to do. So like how life trains you for it. So it's just, wow.
I know. And it's like my dad almost knew that this was going to happen to me. So he made, it's just like you have this path that's paved for you, and what you think is something bad has happened to you is something that's preparing you. And that's what I tell them. So whenever I fall into a hardship now, yes, sometimes you go down that rabbit hole like, oh my gosh, I'm going down here again. But you're like, okay, God is training me for a blessing later on. I have to just take this. And again, hardship and pain is part of your life. Suffering is a choice. Am I going to suffer through this and keep blaming myself? Or am I going to redirect and be like, let's ride through this? Because I'm not going to be in this state for too long. How long do I have to be here? And then I'm going to rise above it. And then something is going to happen to me in the future. And this is going to play a part in that. And you don't know what it is. It's so unknown. But you have to trust that process of what's happening.
Yes, for sure. Now, how do you balance your career and your family?
So part of it, so what I did before, I found ways to get support to keep me afloat. So my mom was my rock, and she gave me a lot of her life and would fly back and forth from Canada to help raise my daughter, as well as my brothers would be here with me to help me with my to-do list. My staff, my neighbors would babysit whenever I was on call, had delays for surgery. Number one, I recruit support because we try to do this ourselves and we're going to get burned out, and we take it out. We'll take it out on kids. We take it out on ourselves, and then we get so mentally drained, we can't stay motivated. So you have to get the support to do that. So because you have to keep yourself in that level of high energy to motivate yourself to keep going to what you want to achieve. And we're not born to do this alone, so part of it is like, as much as I can, even if I have to pay someone, do something, we need to just pull in that resource for us. And as a result, my daughter has learned to be versatile. She's also resilient, independent in the process, and she's learned to cook and bake at such an early age because she had to be able to spend some time by herself and learn some things so that she could get this done before I get there and not fully depend on me. The other way I balance being a surgeon and on my life is that I plan ahead. And it's taken me a long time, but I haven't proved at saying no, because sometimes you just have to say no to some things. So, maybe when you start a business, you said yes to everything. But then once it's so busy and it gets flowing, you just have to kind of create your boundaries and say no to some stuff so that you could focus on what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll dilute yourself and then you're not giving quality anymore. But sometimes opportunities come your way and you just have to add it to your plate because it might be life-changing. And so you might have a juggle at a time, and then as you get it off your plate, you learn to balance that again. Another way I balance this is that I take everyone's schedule into consideration. I take my work schedule, my daughter's schedule, and I've remarried now, and my husband's schedule, and I place it into my work calendar. So whenever something happens that I have to be away, like I have my work calendar and my office manager has that there. So my staff, everyone knows when that time is blocked off, so they don't add something to it and then we're trying to juggle at that point and we work around it. And the main thing is that I try to be proactive as much as possible. I try not to be reactive. And when I get into that reactive mode, when I'm doing reactive work or reactive leadership, I do feel anxious when that happens because it creates that anxiety and stress and it affects you from being present.
Sometimes it's hard for me to balance, but definitely keeping a schedule and being disciplined with your schedule of like, I got up to this time. Now, this time I'm either spending time with my daughter, with my family. Like I can see how it can be hard. Everybody has a different, but I'm glad that you're able to work that out because definitely you have a lot of people around you depending on you to
I
just
know.
juggle everything. And the way that you can do it is just keeping yourself in a structured schedule as well.
I think sorry, I think also keeping yourself healthy, because I have to keep myself healthy. I have to consciously eat healthy and exercise. I exercise almost every day, even if it's 5 minutes to an hour, but I exercise every day. I will pull up an ab workout on YouTube that could be 5 to 10 minutes long, or I'll go for a 5 mile walk run. Because if I'm not healthy and I call in sick, that's my whole office is shut down. And I have to be able now, I have all the staff that's depending on me for payroll and everything else. So I take all of that in consideration.
In your office, you dealt with many patients, all kind of ages, all kind of background. Are you able to mention a memorable case that impacted you and were able to either build from that?
Yes, I have a lot of memorable cases, but I feel like one of the cases that really was instrumental is as a resident. So when I was still training, I felt so honored that one of my attendings allowed me to do Achilles tendon repair. So someone was running and they ruptured their Achilles tendon completely and was unable to walk, and he allowed me to do that full repair from the skin incision to the full closure. And it was so euphoric because for that moment I forgot that I was a resident and I was that surgeon. And he just stood there and watched, and he never interrupted. And at the end, all he said was, "Beautiful work." And that's all I needed because I knew I had his approval and I knew I got it. And even then, I followed up with that patient, and that family and I have become friends over time. And I see him running a 5K, running a 10K, because he's on my social media. And at that point, I knew I loved surgery and that I was a second year resident. And for that doctor to trust that he knew I had good hands to be able to allow me to do that without stopping and starting, he allowed me to do that whole surgery. And in my practice now, I have many memorable cases where I see patients who walk who are in pain and they're better now, fixing deformities so there's no pain when they're in their shoes and they can be active again, giving them their life back, saving a leg from being amputated, doing wound care, healing wounds for diabetics, so other acute chronic conditions that they are not there, preventing them from an amputation. I love taking care of kids. I do the ballet, the Mandora Ballet kids. I take care of kids with their flat feet so they can play sports again. And sometimes I'm not that doctor that you come for a second opinion or a third opinion and who might catch a diagnosis and treat it. So that's very gratifying, like in my heart, and I feel blessed to do what I love to do every day. And even now, I'm starting over again because last year I started doing a fellowship in microsurgery and nerve surgery for the lower extremity. And I've been treating patients and diagnosing them with conditions now that people think it's in their head. They don't realize why they have pain, and doctors are not able to diagnose it because there's only few doctors in the US who have this training. And I'm able to catch this and take patients to surgery. Patients who lost their life, like they can't walk, it hurts every time they stand up, they're miserable, and I've been able to do those surgeries recently. And as I tell the patient you can walk and they make their first step, it's just unbelievable gratification to see I have no pain and my back pain is gone and I feel great, and have them run in my office for the first time and they haven't ran in years. So that's from pediatrics to geriatrics to sports medicine, and everyone else in between. Like it's just amazing to see how patients improve and do well. And I'm grateful for the training and everything I've been through to get me to this point to be able to help patients.
Yeah, that definitely such a just confirmation that you are living your purpose, and you're making a difference on everybody's life, on everybody's health. That's amazing. How do you define success in both career and professional life?
So I would say in my personal life, because that's where my why comes from, I would say success comes from having the love and closeness with my family. And I'll know I have a successful personal relationship when I have a great two-way communication, where my family and I are all involved and intertwined in each other's lives, whether it's today or their long-term journey. So I know that we feel heard and I listen. And we all feel comfortable talking to each other. So no one feels alone, or everyone feels loved and they feel heard. And that way, there's nothing that goes by where someone has to I can't speak to you, I'm going to speak to somebody else. I want that. And that didn't always happen. So I, even with my daughter and I, at some point in time, I always have to check in and make sure she's there. And sometimes things might happen where we may lose connection. And I think we have to always make sure that that communication is always there so that she feels that it's open enough that no matter what it is, how bad it is, how rude it is, that she could just talk about it. And I feel like in my personal life, if that's successful, then I have achieved that and I'm happy. Success in my career, I would say, is a job well done, where patients are satisfied and improved from where they are. If I can take them from 10 out of 10 pain to maybe 5 out of 10 pain, that's improvement. And then if I could take them to 0 out of 10 pain, that's even better. But not every time we can get 0, but at least we could get an improvement. And then success in my business is that it's ever growing and my practice has a healthy culture environment. I will never stop learning. So every year I try to learn something new. And as I said, I was pursuing that fellowship program. I try to teach residents and students, and I have residents and students rotate through my office so that they can get an idea of what it's like and they can pick up tips that will help their life better in their career.
That's great. And actually that goes into my next question, which it is, what advice you will give to young professionals, especially women that are aspire to achieve success while still overcoming personal challenges?
I think number one, just never lose sight of your goals, no matter what's happening and what you're hearing. If that's what you're feeling and your gut feeling says to do, you just do it. Sometimes I do stuff that makes sense to no one and I'll just do it and then it works out. So I say, just do it, go down the path. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, you know what not to do. That was not meant for you, but you will never know till you take the risk. I feel as women, we place these hard expectations and visions in ourselves. Like we have this idea, this is the guy I want to be with. This is what I want for my life. This is what I want for my kids. And then obviously it doesn't always happen that way. And when it does not go down the path that we want it to go, we feel guilty. We feel that we've failed and we hold on to that emotion day after day. Somehow men could just brush it off and be like, this is okay. Like we would look at our bodies and be like, oh, we're fat here. This is hanging. Our belly hangs over our jeans. And a guy would be like tapping their stomach. Be like, look at this. They're proud of their belly. And then they're like, and they can lose the weight a lot faster.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then we were just like, oh my gosh, it's just taking us so long to lose this weight. So we just have to be consistent. But we hold on as if we failed, and we carry that emotion of failure with us every day. And we have to realize that was last week's news. That was yesterday's news. So you can't take that to the next day. The next day is a new day. You get to start over and you get to change. So if you don't change that day and you feel that guilt from the day before, you're not doing anything different. So it will continue the journey that you're thinking in your head. So my advice is learn that when things don't go as planned, or as we envision it for us or our family, that something better is yet to come. That's just the path that you're not supposed to take. And it's just life telling you it's time to take a different road. So you just have to now sit down and say, what is the road? Where am I supposed to go now? Because what you thought you're supposed to go is not there. So there's another path for you. You just have to ask for it. And it's okay. Be flexible, be resilient to adapt. And don't let the past ruin your present mindset. Don't dwell on it, but figure out, what is it teaching you? And that's what I have to figure out. And sometimes you don't know what it is. What did boot camp teach me? I didn't know as I was going to, I didn't know the next month. I didn't know the next year. But 5 years down the road, yes, I didn't know I was going to get divorced 8 years later. Boot camp was getting me ready for that. Boot camp was getting me ready that at the brink of my divorce, I was going to open my own business. And I needed that resilience. So the teaching doesn't happen right away. So go through the hardship and figure out what is your next step. Because you will need that lesson you learn in that hardship for your next blessing. And you have to trust that that's what's happening. But if you're in the hole, you're not going to see it and you're just going to feel depressed about it. And it's okay, because we all get depressed. Just don't stay depressed. Don't suffer for too long. So I would say, as your goal, evaluate what you want, you write it down, and you make an affirmation for it. So a lot of times I would do these things in my life, but in the last probably 3 years, I have been purposely doing more life coaching type of seminars. So now I realize what I have been doing my whole life, there is a formula for it. So I just plug it in to someone else who's made a formula, and it's easy for me to follow like different life coaches now, because it is, I have the same value system. And so you write it down, you figure out what you want, you write it down, and you make it into your personal affirmation. And every morning and every night in solitude by yourself, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, number one, you be grateful for what you have. Don't think about what you don't have. And then you state your affirmation. I want to have another baby. I want to open a shop. I want to travel the world. And be more specific. I want to go to Italy at the Amalfi Coast by next summer. And then you visualize what you want and you smile. You smile because you know this is going to happen. And you make it as if almost certainty at some point I'm going to go there and that's going to happen for me. And then you just repeatedly do that. So you just don't do it once and then you just say, oh, well, this is not going to happen. You do it every day until sometime you just believe it. And then you just watch it materialize in your life with your repetition and your belief. It just happens. And I've done this my whole life because I just didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to fail. And if I do, and I wouldn't call it failure, if it didn't work out, it just means that's not the right path. You just redirect and go down a different path.
Yes, it actually doesn't even just for a young professional, just anyone. And what, as you were talking, I know it has not been an easy road, and sometimes, like, I can talk to people and I said, you need to start working through your traumas, going through your healing, go through awakening. And sometimes people just don't know where to start. What would be your advice to where to start?
I would say, because you just can't lock that off at night. So a lot of times I start at night because sometimes these things whatever's on my mind could prevent me from sleeping. And so at night, reading different books, I came up with my different night affirmation. And I would say, I am at peace with myself. And, I wish love, health, happiness to me, my family, and everyone around. Because sometimes you might be holding a grudge against someone. You might be upset about another person or a thing or a circumstance. So you just tell yourself, you wish everybody love, peace, happiness. You wish everybody. And you just know that you're surrounded by peace and happiness. You're going to fall asleep at night. And you now change your focus. So instead of focusing on this, you change your focus to this peaceful happiness, health, abundance thinking before you go to bed, and you fall asleep with that. And in the morning, you wake up so you start with just being grateful. So you go to bed with thinking what you want, because many research has shown, like, the last thing you think about, your mind starts working with that to make it happen the next day. So if you want peace and happiness, to release that energy from you, so you want to be able to release the energy, and then you want to focus on what you want next. And in the morning, I focus on what I have, what I'm grateful for. And then I'm like, today is going to be a great day. I'm going to accomplish this. And then you just keep being happy for the little things. You're happy to be alive. You're happy to be healthy. You're happy to have healthy kids. You're happy for your safety. Just the little things. Just start being grateful and start thinking about the next thing you want to achieve, and just let that be your focus. And then over time, it will take away the trauma. So what I have learned over time is that as the trauma enters your brain, you get to swipe it away faster. So you can't help it. It will enter. Like even talking about it today, like it was hard not to cry. Like, as I started talking about my father and everything else. So it enters into you again, but you have to swipe it away. So you swipe it away as you talk about it, because over time, as you swipe it, because you're not getting rid of it, you're acknowledging it's there, but you're not going to live in the suffering. So, okay, here you are divorced. Here you are making me feel like a failure. Here you are making me feel like I suck as a wife, whatever it is that you tell yourself. Okay, I get it. I hear you. Go. Okay, I need now to go and, I need to work on traveling to Italy. I need to see how that's going to happen for me. And maybe you do a raffle and you win a prize or whatever, and either way, whatever it is, you just focus on it. So you acknowledge it, it's there, you swipe it away. So that any time it comes back into your system, you've trained your mind not to hold on to that emotion for too long. Acknowledge it, because you don't want to ignore it, because it will always be in your background. You want to know it's there. Okay, I see you, I hear you, but you don't have to live in my mind. Okay, so that's my past. Yes, you've taught me where I went wrong, what I could have done better. And that's how I have to do it, because otherwise you're going to live in that. You're going to crawl up in bed. You're going to eat munchies. You're going to just gain weight. And then one thing that's in your head is going to cause you now to get more and more depressed, because more stuff is going to pile on to that. And it creates a cycle. And then it's harder now to get out of that hole. So that's, I went into detail on how to start, but I think if people do that every night, every morning, as you wake up, as you go to bed, it's what you tell yourself. Because we, as women, we tell ourselves all kinds of stuff that could pull us down. And we have to say, I am amazing. You have to say it to yourself. And I didn't say that to myself. I'll be like, I should have done this better. Why did that happen? And you beat yourself up. I would say it's only in the last year in my affirmation, I self-praise myself. So, I didn't say that. I didn't tell myself I'm amazing. And I do that now. Like as I wake up, I'm amazing to be awake. That's the first thing I say every morning, literally. Like I am amazing, and I'm so grateful to be awake. And then I go through my affirmation. But it took me a good year to train myself for that to be an automatic thing as I wake up. So don't expect it to be weak and then give up on it. If you really want to get through that cycle of habit that you've trained yourself to think, and that self-talk you tell yourself, you have to just be consistent with it.
Being consistent, no matter if you feel it, just like the whole example about going to the gym, a whole week, you're not going to see anything, but it's just a consistency, and you will get there and build up those muscles. So it's the same thing for this. So this is so good.
Yeah. Have your mind and your body in sync.
Yes, exactly. So we touch in so many different parts of your life and your journey and some of the things that you do to balance your life, to be more present. Is there anything that we probably miss that you want our audience to know?
I would probably say sometimes when you feeling shitty, it is a good time to just do something nice for someone. So I learned this from one of my coaching. She was like, just go out there and buy some $20 gift cards and just give it $20 to anyone. And I'm like, well, it's kind of weird. And then now that's what I do. I'll have these gift cards in my car or with me, and I'll go somewhere. Like I was at the hospital and I see this person sitting there and looking like there's something happening in his life, and you just connect, because you could walk by and you could choose to ignore. But now I have these gift cards. And so I might be going through, like it might be a tough day, I'm tired, I have so much stuff to do, But for that moment as you walk by, and then I go back to my car and I get that gift card and I walk up to the person and I say, and I remember telling them, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm giving this to you. Have a great day. And I just walk straight away, walk away. So it's just acts of kindness to a stranger. You might see a homeless person at the side, like whether they're homeless, if there's a grocery store in front of me, as I'm leaving, I'll pick up some groceries and I'll go drop it off to that person. I mean, people don't know I do this, but I'll just do that, so at least when you do that, you're doing something else with someone else. So when you're feeling, if you can't get yourself with your self-talk out of that emotion, do something nice with someone else. You will see how quickly your emotion change because you walk away smiling because you made that person's day. And for whatever reason, and here it is, like you can have an opposite effect on someone. So that's another way that can make you feel better. And I would say the other thing, especially for females, we have an inner intuition, and spend time to mature what that discernment is. Spend time to listen to your inner voice and let it guide you, because it will guide you to great things, and it will tell you to stop. It will tell you to go. And over time, you will learn to stay calm in your mind, regardless of your outer situation or your environment. And ladies, this takes practice. It takes months and months and months of practice to get to that point. I'm not asking you to be a yoga master or this isn't, any of this stuff, but we have it in us. We have everything in us to do what we want to do. And if we can reach inside and listen to the goals we have, we can materialize it in every direction, as long as we stay consistent with it. So mature your inner intuition, that motherly instinct, that tells you, do this, stop, don't ignore it. Because that is your intuition that's leading you and guiding you in your life.
Thank you so much for those last remarks. I'm definitely got some good advice even for myself. So I'm so thankful that you were able to take your time from your busy schedule to do this interview for us.
Thank you so much for having me. Sometimes a lot of what I'm saying, I just do it within myself. To hear myself say it also reinforces it for me. So this is also very therapeutic for me. So I'm hoping that this helps many ladies and people out there to stay steadfast in their journey, regardless of how difficult it is right now. You can make anything happen. Just take it step by step and learn through it. Don't let it hold you back. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.